I gotta say, it feels really weird seeing this entire chapter because the very first pages of the series, 4+ years ago, the anytime you watch an episode of the anime, it always starts with the flashback of Lumir, as we know his name now, and the demon, the great demon who is actually as known now to be Licked. It's weird seeing the fight actually take place after for so long just knowing of the story and only knowing it off of again those few pages. I think it's just what, 2 pages initially in the manga, 2 pages of the series, and then it gets right to the actual plot. Actually, it's just one. It's just the first page, and then you get a little bit more with the anime. But again, it's very weird when you finally find out the true history of what happened. And this chapter had so many good-looking panels. I gotta say, like, just the first page of this, of just seeing Demon Lick just looming over the city, over the capital of the Clover Kingdom, looked really nice. Again, very reminiscent of the first chapter. And then just that panel afterwards, when you see a close-up of him, and it's all shaded and spooky, and he's got magic started to come out of his hand. But in that, here's Lumir showing up on the scene, had light speed, just arriving. He's got his grimoire out. He's ready to combat this guy, his best friend, and who would be his brother-in-law now, as a horrible demon. And it's just that very sad position that he's in, because even though they're buddies, he wants to protect the kingdom. You even get that thought, like, narration in one of the panels where he's like, he knows why he was born with such a tremendous amount of power. That's always the thing. Like, you have these characters who are just born prodigies. What do they do with it? And here you have him just like, as the first Magic King or Wizard Emperor, whichever you go, or I just messed those up. Or Wizard King or Magic Emperor. I always prefer Magic Emperor, but Wizard King is obviously what they use in the official translations and the anime. But this is the guy who started it all for the Clover Kingdom, and at least not the kingdom itself. The Wizard Kings or Magic Emperors, whatever. I'll just go with Wizard King for simplistic reasons. He started all, and you have this guy who clearly, even compared to Julius, Lumir seems far more powerful, and he's just thinking similar to what Julius thought of. The reason that I was born so strong, the reason I'm in this position, isn't just so I can be special and be super powerful and, like, look how cool I am. It's so I can protect my people, stop enemies and threats from destroying what I care about, and doing a duty to the people itself. You get that from him. He's like, I'm gonna stop you from killing these people. That's what I'm here for. And he got this sick beam clash panel. I thought that was really cool, because you have the demon who, well, I guess we'll just call him Licked, who's got the big beam out of one of his hands, where it has Lumir's just got one big energy sword, and you see that small light ray compared to the big beam. But you can kind of like imagine like that happening. You have a big energy blast just shooting at him versus this sword that's just there, moved at light speed. It's on impact, which again is just, it looks so cool. And that panel afterwards, like it. Though I'm going to use it for the thumbnail of this video, but it looks so cool. And I love a lot of the panels in this, especially on that big spread page, the second to last one, where you just see him moving around and changing positions all at light speed and throwing around all these light swords. And it's such an interesting looking visual for how he fights. He's just moving around at rapid paces, throwing these extremely powerful spells one after another, while at a blinding speed, and clearly like having a very cool tactical positioning, and very much trying to keep the demon from approaching the city, doing what he can to both attack it, but also to prevent him from advancing. He's protecting the city while offensively combating him at the same time, which again, you would expect from somebody that, that high tier as Lumir. Poor Sekira, though, she just completely beside herself. I actually thought that was really cool. So one thing that, if you go back and look at a lot of the chapters, I think it's Raya, and I believe Vito, and they have that flashback of the whole massacre of the elves, and you see a silhouette, in that silhouette, you have a little bit of a little bit of hair kind of pointing up in the middle. I always made jokes that it was Zareth from Fairy Tail, just because it had similar hair if you compare the silhouetted hair to his hair, and I just thought that was funny. You got this Death Wizard character, and of his is 400 years, and then Black Clover's is 500 years, so it's just a kind of chuckling thing. Obviously, they're not related, but I didn't notice. I didn't think about it until this chapter, because you have Sekri, also known Nero. I'm wondering if she's gonna tell people to call her Sekri from now on, if they're still gonna call her Nero. That I'm very curious about. But the fact that her hair is like that, it's actually her that these people are seeing, to where they assume this was the person that led to the destruction of their kingdom. Maybe there's a traitor. At some point, the only one standing, but it's actually Sekri, who's completely just ravaged emotionally over all this. She's just like freaking out. Tedia is dead. The magic tools that were created to help people were used to be part of the complete and total genocide of the elves. And then meanwhile, you have the demon, the one that we know as this, the spooky deceiver, the one who was orchestrating all this, but lost his chance to get a body when Lick just instead became a demon himself. And he's just behind him in that creepy black, like, vapor as, this saw-toothed creature with these completely, like, looming and ominous eyes just looking at him and talking. And it's like, do you think that you did anything better not giving me your body? Because you're just doing this anyway, so I don't know what the point of what you were doing was. And you can definitely get that really, like, sad, like, sacrificial switch. Because even though obviously, yeah, he's doing what probably that demon would have done, but he's doing it in a much more, like, mindless monster action. And as he is, he only seems very just like shooting big energy attacks. He obviously just became this demonic form, and we didn't really know anything about him. If you've seen the first page of the series, like, he's got different colored hands, and then guessing probably, like, maybe each of them were a different element or something. But here he's just using, like, big energy attacks, and it would have been a lot worse probably for the other devil, the other demon who uses the word soul magic. So, if you're going against two characters and your options are dude who shoots big energy beams and dude who can just say words that completely, like, mess with the status of reality around him, like, oh, he can heal himself by saying heal. Fan-fucking-tastic. I'd totally want to go against that guy, or he can just say storm of swords and have both magical and real swords come around. He can literally make matter. So you don't want to go against that guy. You want to go against the big energy beam shooting, like, mindless monster, pretty much. But there was a comment by him that probably has some weight to a theory I had, because he says that it probably would have been bad for him to go against Lumire's light magic, and we know that Yami's dark magic could hurt him, and he didn't do any counter moves to it. He would either dodge or get cut by it and then just heal. And my theory was, thinking at that is, when we see him use other spells to counter people's, like, obviously has very powerful wind magic, but in Black Clover, if you have a straight counter, light, it mirrors, even if there's a huge power gap between the characters, as long as the mirror covers the surface of the light attack, it's going to reflect it. So you have, using his powerful wind spells, but this dude used, was the vacuum wall, so all the air just vacuumed out. It was just a void pocket. It completely dissipated and did what it did. And you'd think that obviously with Yami's darkness magic, use a type of light spell is probably going to counter it, but he can't seemingly use light from what I could guess. Obviously him using a spell that is light based probably puts himself in danger, just guessing, light against a demon. So darkness, maybe it's not like, well, it won't affect him, he can't use the counter of it, which again would make sense. If you're a dude who's like, I can't do fire. I'm not gonna do fire will kill me. and then some dude uses I don't know, an attack made of, I don't know, a paper attack, some origami shit. It's Conan from Naruto, and you're just like, I could use a fire attack, but I don't want them to one see that it's dangerous to me, because it also would know his weakness. So that's good. That means that even if he's so powerful that all these characters have to take him a group, even with Lumiere there, we know that he's got a clear weakness. They have some form of weakness to light magic, which again, I'm hoping in the future, just as a side note, I don't want Augustus, you know, the actual Clover King, I don't want him to die. I would like it to see him have a redemption arc, or maybe he has, maybe something happens and he decides that he needs to get good, and that will lead to a redemption arc. Because he has light magic. He's not even though he seems kind of crappy, he's got a good magic. So as long as he worked hard, he could probably be useful. Maybe he'll be a valuable asset to a future fight with the devil, assuming all of these guys have some form of issue with light magic. But we actually got a good display of just like a top tier character in Black Clover, because we don't know if Lumiere and all these guys, the devil that we've seen, Demon Lick, we don't know if they are the very pinnacle of the series. I'd willing to guess that by the time Black Clover's over, they're gonna at least be somewhere near the top, maybe in like a tier or two below the bottom. And we've only really seen a lot of like really powerful characters with like strange attacks. Like Yami is obviously very strong, but he's more about like combinational attacks and then dimension slides. You don't need to have some big powerful explosion for that. You have a small clean cut. It's the fact that attack, if it hits you, it's cutting through dimensions, so your durability doesn't really matter unless you have some form of resistance against spatial attacks like that. But you got something here with the Demon Lick, who is just combined all four of his hands, and Lumiere is pretty much just like, if that attack goes off, it's going to destroy the entire country. Which again, it makes sense. We saw Patre stored up with his light magic, and it was able to cover the entire capital, and that was like estimated to be around like 50 miles wide, and that was what Julius was capable of. So you have a guy already Wizard King level, and his biggest attack covers that much. It's not an outlandish idea for a character who is definitely a step above them, because you see Lumiere is just like, I don't know if I can deal with this. I can try and defend against it, but the damage is still going to be huge. And so a character, you know, above that to a good enough degree, having a power output more than that, like more than like the size of the capital, because the countries aren't that big in Black Clover, because everything we've seen is on one continent, and they all seem pretty small. We've seen some of the overviews. They're probably each like a couple 100 miles across. And so again, like if you got one guy who's like biggest attack 50 miles, and then a character stronger than them by a good margin, having one that's a couple 100 wide, makes sense. But they beat him logically. I thought maybe he was going to do kind of like what Julius did, you know, a big all or nothing attack, and he would take him out, but within that moment, he would die in the process. I mean, we sort of got it, but here comes Sekri, who brings in, you know, the magic tool that is used to absorb the power from a bunch of the elves. They absorb the power from within, from the attack that Demon Lick was going to use, and it wasn't able to hold it. Like it absorbed it momentarily. It wasn't within Lick's possession anymore, but that attack right there, just like bursting out, kind of like stunned him, did some damage, and gave Lumiere the moment to take that giant, like, light great sword that we've seen. If you've watched any episode of the anime, it's in the opening scene, and it wasn't in the first pages of the manga. So I feel like when they were shooting that scene from the anime, Tabata's like, this is what I want to go down, because this is what's going to happen when we finally see the backstory, which again shows he prepared everything. You know, he thought way ahead, and he was just like, yeah, I know what's going to happen, because the anime's been out for, what are they on, episode 80, 83 now? The anime's been out for a year and a half. So clearly he's probably had this entire, like, sequence fought from the beginning. Like, if there's one thing you probably got, it's like, oh, I'm going to open the series with the big battle between, you know, the first Wizard King and this huge demon. He probably already knew that part of the story for sure before he even got the series published, because that just feels like one thing that you would have lore-wise like thought of. But it was really sad seeing like on Lumiere's face when he did it, because he was, you know, he was tearing up, he was crying, because this was obviously a painful thing. It was one of those times where even though he knows he has to do it, he doesn't want to, but he's going to go through with it because it's right. It's what he needs to do as the protector of the kingdom, as their prince, and as their Wizard King. And he needs to take out the threats to them. And unfortunately, in this case, that threat was his best friend, who got turned into a demon. And it's really sad when you think about it afterwards, knowing that, like, if you just heard the stories in Black Clover as a kid, you probably thought, like, during that battle, the first Wizard King, Lumiere, would just be like, ha, I defeated the demon, piece of shit. I saved the country. But in reality, he's torn up because he's just slain his best friend. Meanwhile, the devil is just like, oh, that was pretty good. You guys did a good job, but I still got the 5-leaf Black Clover Grimoire, and I'm going to get out of here. I got a plan. I'm going to work out. But Sekri is just like, nope, sorry, bitch. Has all the magic stones, and uses that to amplify her own magic so she could contain the demon and seal him away. But doing so actually is what gave her those horns and made her pretty much a new species. I'm guessing she's going to be some form of half-demon or a changeling or something. Something between the two, or an entirely different species. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how Tabata goes about explaining what she is now, or if she just maybe a partial, like a half demon, half human, turn into bird chick. And even in this moment, again, I like the fact that the devil, he doesn't ever seem concerned. He never really seems like, even when it looks like he's in a bad spot, he never gives off like, oh, damn, they got me. Like, when he gets the sealing magic around him, he's just kind of like, oh, well, this is unfortunate. And then he's just like, brings the magic stones off of her, and he's just like, all right, now I can get out, reincarnate, and then I'll come back as an elf, and they're not going to know what's going on, leading up to the events that we know from this arc. And then at that point, the first Wizard King, Miri's just like, he's bloody, he's beaten, and he's not looking too good. And Sekri, just at that point, is just like, all right, I'm going to use my power. I'm going to use the rest of the magic stones, and I'm going to seal you in the state that we know of, the statue. And it wasn't just a carving. It was him this whole time, as we've seen, and this leading up to that moment. And because of that, and because she had to use the magic stones again, something that was warping her body and pretty much making her not human, turning her into her bird form. And as she said, it had been years since she kind of like became aware of what was going on. Like, she probably was just a normal bird for who knows, for years and years, who knows how many years, but as stated, long period of time. And then she's just like, well, at least I was able to help you, Lumiere. But that devil's gonna come back at some point, and one of the future generations are gonna need to stop them. And her protecting it all those years, and then finally leading up to Asta, which really, really enjoyable there. I like the whole full circle. Now we just need to figure out why exactly Asta got it. Like, if it was her finding him and choosing him, or if the Grimoire chose him, or if you've seen my theory, it was because of the fact that in the first chapter he was in a very despair-filled moment. And then, encouraging him kind of like brought him back from there. Maybe that triggered it, kind of like how coming back from despair brought Patri from a dark elf to kind of like this hybrid form. And then, meanwhile, back to the current timeline of the chapter, Asta, and Patri burst through the big creepy like slug demon monster, and comes out of the ground to fight against this guy. And again, the demon dude, just doesn't seem to care. He has no real like change of expression. He's just like, okay, let's do this again. But then you see that first like indication on him, and this was, I think, really cool to finally see, similar to like how we've seen Yami, how he was throughout the whole series, and then seeing him freak out against the devil was impressive. You knew that this was a threat now, that this character throughout the whole series has been pretty calm and collective, and he's got this complete total like look of astonishment and like panic on his face. That was what made the demon more threatening before he even did anything too crazy outside of what we knew. Just that first like with Grimoire spell. And now when he's actually showing some form of a change in expression, you get that twitch on him. You have Lumiere coming in, the person that was related to the ruining his plan before, and taking out Demon Lick. So now he's got to contend with this on top of everything else. And Sekri, who was the one that sealed him and pretty much put the end kibosh on that period of plan. And now he's got his current plan potentially in a jumble again with these guys. So now we're going to see, we got Legends fighting. We got Linked and Lumiere together again, which is going to be awesome to see. We got Austin, who's going to see Sekri and wonder what the hell happened to his bird. And Austin, both are about to see two legendary rival characters just display what they're like versus where they are in their whole position in their rivalry and how strong they are. So awesome chapter, really good. We had a lot of really good panels of displaying action, of character emotional impact, of lore explanation, love and sacrifice. Very, very much like a 10 out of 10 chapter for sure. This is just one of those chapters where you got like everything you wanted. The only way that you could have got more in this chapter is if like Tabata like further pushed some really long ships so the shippers got something too. But again, this was great action, character, like depth, like love and sacrifice, further pushing of the story itself, and just guys arriving on the scene in an intense motion. So tell me in the comments what you think about this chapter. Loved it. I thought it was really good. Really good. Finish up through that entire flashback without needing to take a million chapters to get through it. Like two chapters done and executed extremely well. No fuss, no dragging out a flashback arc, no rushing it. It was all done in a really good manner to where we know a bunch of other stuff occurring, but it was good to see that information that even though we knew the start and the end, we didn't know a bunch. We had pretty much a puzzle piece, and we were missing a bunch of really important connecting moments. We had a puzzle, and we were missing all of like the corner pieces, or I guess it'd probably be something like that, and then like the faces of people in the puzzle or something. But again, other than that, tell me in the comment section what you think about this. I really appreciate if you thumbs up the video, press the like button and the subscribe button, and check out my other videos. But other than that, I really appreciate everyone who's already subscribed, and I look forward to the next Black Clover chapter. It's going to be awesome. And I thank you all for listening. Bye.